Wednesday to extend the halt in fighting for 5 days to give Egyptian brokered negotiations a chance to bring about an agreement to end the conflict. Scott Bobb reports.
Calm returned to Gaza and southern Israel after the exchange of rockets and airstrikes in the early morning hours Thursday. The Israeli military said it staged airstrikes against Palestinian militant targets in Gaza after at least 8 rockets were fired into Israel. A statement said the rocket attacks began 2 hours before a 3-day ceasefire expired. An official of Hamas, which controls Gaza, said its forces had not staged any such attacks and accused Israel of violating the ceasefire. The flare-up of violence came as Palestinian negotiator Azam Ahmed announced a 5-day extension of the truce. Scott Bobb, Jerusalem.
For more on this story, visit our website at voanews.com. The U.S. Defense Department says a mission to evacuate refugees from a mountain in northern Iraq is far less likely after an assessment found fewer refugees in the area than previously feared. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, speaking to reporters late Wednesday, cited the effects of U.S. airstrikes against the Islamic State group and airdrops of humanitarian aid in helping to improve the situation on Mount Sinjar. Prime Minister David Cameron from the UK commented to reporters.
Well, there does seem to be some good news, and that is that the American-led scouting operation has found fewer people on the mountainside than expected. Also, we see that the UK and have got through to people. But I think it's good news there are fewer people there, and they're in better condition than expected.
Iraqi Kurds and other minorities sought refuge on Mount Sinjar ahead of a militant onslaught in the regions near the Syrian border. The Associated Press is reporting the government troops have taken Maliha, a suburb of Damascus that had been held by anti-government rebels. It is the latest defeat for the rebels near the capital. The report says troops are moving to mop up opposition in the surrounding countryside. Pope Francis said dialogue and not fruitless displays of force will help bring peace to the Korean Peninsula. Comments came after North Korea fired 5 projectiles into the sea at about the same time the Pope's plane arrived in Seoul today. South Korean defense officials say the projectiles were launched from the city of Wonsan and traveled 220 kilometers before landing in the ocean off the East Coast. Thousands of people have gathered in Lahore, Pakistan on National Independence Day for an opposition rally led by 2 leaders, both of whom say the government of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is corrupt. Cricket champion turned opposition leader Imran Khan and Muslim cleric Tahir al-Qadri led a march today that was set to begin in Lahore and end in the Pakistani capital of Islamabad. Another airline has suspended flights to Africa as the Ebola outbreak continues to grow in 4 West African countries. Korean Airlines says it will temporarily stop flights to and from Kenya's capital of Nairobi in what it called a measure to stop Ebola from spreading. This is Joe Palca from Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.
From Washington, this is VOA's International Edition. Coming up, President Obama comments on the situation in Iraq. Indonesia clamps down on support for the Islamic State group. Israel-Hamas truce is holding after a 5-day extension. And Help Age International reaches out to aid the elderly in Gaza.
They're very stressed and they're very traumatized. I mean, of course, many of them have lived through this a number of times over the years.
It's all ahead right here for you. I'm Susan Yawkey. President Obama today made a statement on Iraq from his vacation spot in Martha's Vineyard.
We continue to make progress in carrying out our targeted military operations in Iraq. Last week, I authorized 2 limited missions, protecting our people and facilities inside of Iraq, and a humanitarian operation to help save thousands of Iraqi civilians stranded on a mountain. A week ago, we assessed that many thousands of Yazidi men, women, and children had abandoned their positions to take refuge on Mount Sinjar in a desperate attempt to avoid slaughter. We also knew that ISIL terrorists were killing and enslaving Yazidi civilians in their custody and laying siege to the mountain. Without food or water, they faced a terrible choice: starve on the mountain or be slaughtered on the ground. That's when America came to help. Over the last week, the U.S. military conducted humanitarian airdrops every night, delivering more than 114,000 meals and 35,000 gallons of fresh water. We were joined in that effort by the United Kingdom, and other allies pledged their support. Our military was able to successfully strike ISIL targets around the mountain, which improved conditions for civilians to evacuate the mountain safely. Yesterday, a small team of Americans, military and civilian, completed their review of the conditions on the mountain. They found that food and water have been reaching those in need, and that thousands of people have been evacuating safely each and every night. The civilians who remain continue to leave, aided by Kurdish forces and Yazidis who are helping to facilitate the safe passage of their families. And so the bottom line is that the situation on the mountain has greatly improved, and Americans should be very proud of our efforts. Because the skill and professionalism of our military and the generosity of our people, we broke the ISIL siege of Mount Sinjar. We helped vulnerable people reach safety, and we helped save many innocent lives. Because of these efforts, we do not expect there to be an additional operation to evacuate people off the mountain, and it's unlikely that we're going to need to continue humanitarian airdrops on the mountain. The majority of the military personnel who conducted the assessment will be leaving Iraq in the coming days. And I just want to say that as Commander-in-Chief, I could not be prouder of the men and women of our military who carried out this humanitarian operation almost flawlessly. I'm very grateful to them, and I know that those who were trapped on that mountain are extraordinarily grateful as well. Now, the situation remains dire for Iraqis subject to ISIL's terror throughout the country, and this includes minorities like Yazidis and Iraqi Christians. It also includes many Sunnis, Shia, and Kurds. We're going to be working with our international partners to provide humanitarian assistance to those who are suffering in northern Iraq, wherever we have capabilities, and we can carry out effective missions like the one we carried out on Mount Sinjar without committing combat troops on the ground. We obviously feel a great urge to provide some humanitarian relief to the situation, and I've been very encouraged by the interest of our international partners in helping on these kinds of efforts as well. We will continue airstrikes to protect our people and facilities in Iraq. We have increased the delivery of military assistance to Iraqi and Kurdish forces fighting ISIL on the front lines. And perhaps most importantly, we are urging Iraqis to come together to turn the tide against ISIL, above all by seizing the enormous opportunity of forming a new, inclusive government under the leadership of Prime Minister-designate Abadi. I had a chance to speak to Prime Minister-designate Abadi a few days ago, and he spoke about the need for the kind of inclusive government, a government that speaks to all the people of Iraq that is needed right now. He still has a challenging task in putting a government together, but we are modestly hopeful that the Iraqi government situation is moving in the right direction.
President Obama at his vacation site in Martha's Vineyard today. As Prime Minister of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan's foreign policy towards jihadist groups like the Islamic State strained relations with his Western allies. And once again, the issue is being raised as Mr. Erdogan ascends to his new role as president of Turkey. But as Dorian Jones reports from Istanbul, a change in policy may be in the offing.
İsrail devletinin Gazze'de, Filistin'de yaptığının soykırım değil de neyle izah edeceksiniz?
Last month, Mr. Erdogan bellowed to his supporters that Israel's military offensive